Hey, I'm Vance. Here are the top 3 mistakes SMMA owners make when they're getting started. The first one is probably the most prominent one, which is doing the exact same thing as everybody else. Now, to an extent, you have to learn by doing things that already work and that other people have already done. But if you just strictly rely on other people's tactics and copying what other people are doing, long term, you're completely screwed because you don't learn how to think for yourself. You need to learn how to think for yourself, come up with your own ad strategies, come up with your own sales tactics and strategies, your own offer structures, your own client service structures. If you can't think for yourself, you're always going to be relying on, somebody else being ahead of you, and you'll never be able to spearhead yourself in, one direction and get further ahead of everybody else who's around you, right? So you really need to be able to, again, think for yourself, come up with your own things, and most people when they're starting don't even consider this in the slightest. So think for yourself, right? Try stuff out for fun, see what works, see what doesn't work, and come up with your own ideas and learn how to say things different on sales calls that you weren't just told to say. Learn how to write ads that you weren't just told to write. Right? Take what people tell you to do, whether that's coaches, YouTube videos, whatever it is, take that information and set it as your baseline, but then from there, play around with it and see what works for you as well, because just copying and pasting exactly what works for somebody else is not necessarily going to work for you. So do not do the exact same thing as everybody else because you won't have any competitive edge. The second common mistake that social media marketing agency owners make when they're starting out is outsourcing everything way too early. So I've talked about this in some other videos, so I don't need to go too deep on just this one specific side of it, but take an appointment setter for an example. If you don't already know how to set appointments to a T, handle every single objection on the phone, how to get good pickup rates, and everything that's involved with setting appointments, then if you just hire somebody overseas, they're just like an extension of you. And if you don't know what you're doing, they're not going to know what they're doing much better, if at all. If they know better, then great, fantastic. You got a little bit lucky, but even then, you should be really, really, really good at something before you outsource it, or at least very good and good enough to, get really strong, consistent results, whether that's with setting appointments, whether that's with client service, whether that's with taking sales calls, whatever it is, you need to make sure that you yourself have a strong baseline that you can teach to somebody so that they can do it, because generally speaking, when you delegate something, the quality of the work goes down. So you need to make sure that your quality of work is as high as possible, so that when you delegate and then the quality of work goes down a little bit, it's still good work that's being done, and you're still being very productive within your business as you hand things off to other people. And again, a common mistake is hiring an appointment setter before you know how to set appointments yourself. You should have your own appointment setting strategy and method that works really well for yourself before you hire other people to do that for you, right? That's really the point here. This applies again to media buying for clients, whatever it is, because then on top of that, if you know how to do these things that you're outsourcing, then from there, if the person that you hired is good, or you'll find out if they're bad. And in so doing, you'll be able to fire them very quickly, replace them with somebody better very quickly, and then keep somebody who's, just doing a better job altogether. The amount of people that I see in my comment section talking about, oh, why don't you outsource this? Why don't you outsource that? You're doing too much, which is kind of hilarious. You need to do a lot of work to make it far in business, and that's why most people don't. It's just kind of a harsh reality. You need to do a lot of work. But that being said, don't outsource things too early. Be patient, and it will pay off in the long run. Time's going to pass way quicker than you think. So just trust me, do the work that you don't really want to do, because nobody else wants to do it, and that's your biggest competitive edge that you can have. And number 3 is playing for quick wins, not playing for the long term. And this actually kind of feeds off of number 2, where a lot of people play for the quick win of, oh, now I don't have to set my appointments for myself. And then they go and hand them off to somebody else, right? But again, if you don't have that process, then you're screwing yourself in the long term, because then you have to go back and fix your appointment setting process later on in order to get this whole thing working properly. Appointment setting is not that serious. Like, it's not super hard to do or anything like that, but it's still important that you get all these little bits and pieces right, because if your appointment setting rate is half of what it could be, then the amount of sales calls you're getting is half of what it could be. The amount of sales calls you're closing is half of what it could be. So you're closing half the deals by having an appointment setting rate that's half of what it could be. And so I know I'm really leaning into this hard, but if your appointment setting rate is half of what it could be, and then if your close rate's half of what it could be, and then if your response rate from your cold emails, for example, are half of what they could be, then what happens is half, like you're screwing yourself completely, right? You're down to 12.5% of what you could be getting in terms of deal flow. So don't play for these quick little wins of, oh, I want to delegate this, oh, I don't want to send cold emails. It's like, you should really be looking to get really good at everything and be the one spearheading everything like that. And unfortunately, it takes a long time, but in the long term, that's how you win. I don't copy anybody in like anything that I do. And that's the beauty of what I do and why I'm completely different and why it's hard for a lot of people to compete with me, because I have simply, done these three things in a better way. I do the opposite of what everybody else does for number one. For number two, just looking at my screen, I wait, if anything, arguably too long to outsource things, or I wait, right on time. Like I've taken about 550 sales calls in my business and I still haven't outsourced sales yet. I'm about to, but I still haven't done it yet. And then the third thing, playing for quick wins, not the long term, kind of goes hand in hand with, again, taking a bunch of sales calls. I set myself at least 1,000 appointments on my own before hiring an appointment setter. And now my appointment setting process is rock solid and it's super easy. I may have gone a little bit, I may have overextended on that one, but you get the point, right? Playing long term, and now it's super easy where, I know how to be on the phones and talk to people and stand out there. I know how to be, stand out to people when I'm on the sales call. I know how to stand out to people when I'm showing them what it is that I do. And I know how to stand out to people within my ads. Like, it's play on hard mode. You want to be playing on hard mode because nobody wants to do it. And if you play on hard mode and nobody else is, and you do it for long enough, you win.